name is Karen Ploch. I'm the curator at the Historical Society of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. It's a few days before Veterans Day in 2020. We're still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, so we're still dealing with some economic troubles and people trying to save money in various aspects of their life. So I figured this might actually be a good time to talk a little bit about history relating to war times and times of economic struggle, given that it's so close to Veterans Day. One of our board directors, Eileen, actually recently gave me a recipe for war cake. Now, for those of you who don't know what war cake is, it actually goes by a few different names, depending on when in history you're looking at it. Sometimes it's been known as poor man's cake or depression cake, because recipes like these were very common during times of rationing, if you're talking about the World Wars or the Depression era of the 1930s. And basically what this recipe is it makes a cake without using things like milk or eggs or other things that would typically be more expensive or were rationed during a time of economic hardship. So since we are currently in a time of economic hardship for many, I figured let's try to make war cake. I personally have never made it before, but hopefully I can recreate it today with some success. Now for this recipe, given to me by our board member Eileen, thank you Eileen for giving this to me so I could share it with our viewers. These are the ingredients you will need in case you want to make it at home to celebrate Veterans Day while trying to stay socially distanced during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you'll need 2 cups of brown sugar, a half cup of raisins, 2 tablespoons of shortening. This was used instead of butter. 2 cups of water, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 3 cups of flour. Let's get started. And thank you to my husband Charles, who is recording this today. So the first step is to take a medium saucepan, and you want to mix together brown sugar, water, cinnamon, cloves, salt, shortening, and raisins, and boil them over medium heat for 5 minutes. Now, unfortunately, I do not have raisins, but I've been told it shouldn't mess up the recipe, but you'll see me putting together everything else. So Charles, if you will come over here, you turn on your heat. And first put in some sugar, put in the cinnamon, the cloves, the water, the salt, and lastly, Crisco. Now we're just going to mix this up until it gets to a nice boil, and then we'll boil it for 5 minutes. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes. I just turned off the heat, and as you can see, the mixture has this nice dark brown color to it. And it smells really good. Kind of smells like your typical Christmas cuisine with all the cloves and cinnamon. So what you do now is you want to let this cool. So you just take it off the burner and set it to the side. Usually, according to the recipe, it takes about 50 minutes to cool. The mixture has been cooled for about 50 minutes now. So next, the instructions say to put in the flour, the baking soda, and the baking powder. We'll add those in. first cup of flour. Get that mixed up. We add our second cup of flour. If you take a close look at the pan, you can see it's slowly starting to turn into more of a batter. And put in the last cup of flour. And stir that up. And while I'm stirring this, you notice that I greased a pan over here. Depending on which recipe you can use either a bundt pan or a baking sheet or a baking dish. I personally only have a baking dish, so that's what we're going to use today. So Charles, if you zoom in here, you can see it's pretty much like a cake batter at this point. Just going to stir it up a little bit more to try to get it evenly distributed. Relatively good. And then once it's all mixed up, we'll put it in the baking dish. So here you can see we've put our batter into the baking dish, and you want to set your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to put that in. Now, depending on what kind of pan you use, will determine how long you want to leave it in the oven. And according to Eileen's recipe, she wants you to make sure that you don't open it for at least the first 20 minutes. And depending on what type of pan you use, it can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Alright, so it's been in the oven for roughly 30 minutes. Let's do the test to see if it is ready to come out. It's nice and clean, so it is done.